Hello, my name is Anuska and welcome to my channel. Now, on this week's video, I'm talking all about stage fright. And as a singer myself, standing on stage in front of audiences, I have had to learn how to work with this. So I want to share today some ways I hope are going to really help you, whether you are standing on an actual physical stage or whether it's a online stage and you're doing presentations or meetings or summits or podcasts, you name it. Because I think whenever we're putting ourselves out there, there's always going to be an element of anxiety and nerves. Now, I think that some nerves are really beneficial. I feel like if we're completely nonchalant about something, we're probably not going to be bringing our greatest self to the table. So I think what's really useful is to see nerves and anxiety, like performance anxiety and stage fright, as actually just an energy. And it's how we label it that determines our level of anxiety, because the feelings in our body are exactly the same as when we're excited. Anxiety, excitement feel very similar. It's more to do with how we label that feeling. And that would usually be determined by what we're doing. So if we can start to sort of relabel these feelings as excitement, then it's easier to channel that energy into a great performance. So I'm going to talk about stage fright in 3 different stages. So first of all, what you can do in advance. And obviously you may not have that much notice. So it's going to depend on how much notice you have. But these are things that you can be doing all the time. You don't have to wait until you have a performance or an engagement or a presentation to do these things. So the more you can normalize some of these things, the better into your day-to-day life. So we'll talk about that first. Then I'm going to talk about things you can do the morning of, just before, the morning of. And then I'm going to talk about things you can actually do in the moment. So I'm going to break this down into 3 stages. So first of all, in advance. Now, again, how much effort and time you put into this will probably depend on how important the engagement or the performance or the event is to you. But I know for me, in terms of when I put on my own concerts and shows, I will be preparing weeks and weeks in advance. And so I will be doing this probably 2 months in advance of any engagement that I do. So first of all, this sort of sounds obvious, but it's preparation. And I'm talking about that both in terms of the content that you're sharing, but also in terms of preparing your voice. And so I think speakers are often very good at preparing in terms of content, getting their presentation perfect and their figures and their data, etc. But the voice tends to get neglected until maybe the last minute. So it's really making sure that your instrument, the voice, is functioning really well, is warmed up, is strong, is healthy, is agile. And you may need to go and actually seek some voice training for that. Again, it depends on what you're doing. And are you talking to a big audience? Is this something that's really important to you that you actually want to invest that time in? But I see in my work, often when people are really anxious about speaking, it's because they don't really have a relationship with their voice. They don't really trust their voice and they don't really know what's going to come out. And then you add nerves to the mix and then the voice tends to kind of get quite constricted. So if this is something really important to you, I do really recommend putting some time into actually training your voice. And again, this can then be something that you can do consistently on a daily basis if your voice is really important for you in your business or career. So preparation. I also, just in terms of preparation, I don't believe in kind of micromanaging the process. So know your content inside out. And then when you come to the performance or the event or the presentation, then let it go and trust that you will know what to say in that moment. Because also it opens you up to being more fluid, to going with the flow. Maybe someone will say something really funny, or maybe you'll think of an anecdote that you've never thought of before. So it opens you up, it kind of frees you versus it's got to look like this and I've got to say this and I've got to do that. So just having that content, embodying the content, and in my case, embodying my music then I can just show up in the moment at a concert. Then the next stage is really to practice, but record yourself. Now, if you can, also video yourself is really, really useful, but worst case scenario, just do an audio recording, because it's really, really valuable to listen back to what everyone else is going to hear, remembering that what you hear in your head is not what anyone else hears. Because sometimes, and actually I would say quite frequently, in our head, our presentation might sound too much. It might sound too enthusiastic, too, there's too much intonation, there's too much dynamics. But actually, when you listen back, it doesn't sound half as over the top as you thought. So listening back is really, really useful. So you get to listen to how your audience is going to hear you. Then number 3 is visualization. And I've talked about this before, because the mind doesn't know the difference between what we imagine and what we experience with our senses. So you can literally, particularly if you know where you're going to be doing this event or engagement, you can literally visualize yourself in that moment, in that room, what you're wearing, what you're saying, how you want the audience to respond to you. And you can literally start to feel how you want to feel. It's incredibly powerful. And I always do that before I do any shows, any concerts. I literally imagine myself on that stage, standing in front of the audience and delivering my music the way I want them to hear it. So it's incredibly powerful. But again, you don't want to be doing that for the first time the night before. If possible, try and start doing that maybe at least a week before, maybe a couple of weeks before. And, you can just do that before you go to bed. It's very, very powerful. The next thing is breathing, and specifically belly breathing, because what a lot of people do when they speak is the breath gets very shallow and very high, and it's kind of breathing from here, which is not a very effective way of powering the voice. But also the other sort of win-win with the belly breathing is that it actually helps to calm our nervous system, which I'm going to come to in the next section. But practicing that belly breathing, and I've done videos on breathing, so I will put the link below. But again, if you're not used to that deeper belly breathing and you're used to that sort of high chest, shallow breath, it's going to take a little bit of time to sort of retrain yourself to breathe that bit deeper. It's a win-win. Your voice is going to work better, but also you're going to feel calmer, because it's really a nice way of calming the nervous system. And last but not least is to get as much rest, to drink as much water. And if you can, the night before, steam your voice, just because the voice loves to be hydrated and loves to be moist. So it's a really, really nice way of just getting everything loose, getting everything supple, and your voice is just going to work so much better when it's more hydrated and it's more moist. Now, on the day, and this could be depending on what time you're doing your event. If it's an evening thing, you might do this in the afternoon. If it's a morning thing, you might do this when you wake up in the morning. It depends on what time of day your event or engagement is. But these are some things that you can actually do. So first of all, so when we get anxious or nervous, the muscles in our body tend to tense. I mean, that's pretty universal for us all, which is obviously going to be an issue for the voice, because the throat muscles are going to tense particularly. We might find the tongue tenses, the jaw tenses, and all of these things, we want them to be open and soft for our voice to really function at its best. So the first thing I would suggest you do is actually just get some movement through your body, through the articulators, just get everything moving. This doesn't have to be a big thing. This could be 2 minutes before, but get some movement. Now, again, I've done videos on this, but just some examples of things you might like to do. Yawns are great for releasing the throat. So that could either be an actual real yawn or a stifled yawn where you keep your mouth closed and pull a funny face, or it could actually be a proper yawn, but really yawn, like allow yourself to yawn, just like go for it. So yawns are great for the throat, really, really good for releasing the throat and helping to settle the larynx as well, the voice box. Another really important part of speaking is the tongue. We need the tongue for articulation of consonants and vowels. So it's going to be really important for clarity. So stretching the tongue is really going to make a big difference. A really quick thing you can do is to pretend to clean your teeth with your tongue. And again, you can see you could literally do these things in like 2 seconds. It doesn't have to be a big thing. The next one, often we hold a lot of tension in our shoulders when we get anxious. I think for a lot of us as well, if we're sitting at a desk all day, we tend to kind of hunch over and the shoulders tend to get tight. So some good shoulder rolls at the same time, shaking out the hands, shaking out the arms. All of this impacts the voice. We know there's a link between the hands and the voice. When the hands are tense, there's going to be tension in the voice. So we want to soften and get some movement through the hands, the arms, and the shoulders. And so finally, because we can often also hold a lot of tension in our neck, is just to do some very gentle head turns, just to get a bit of movement through the neck so we're not gripping through the neck. And hopefully you can start to see we're just trying to release all of this, which is all sort of around the voice and connected to the voice, some directly, some indirectly, just so the voice has the best possible chance of functioning freely and openly, remembering that this is probably all likely to get more tense when we're nervous. Then the next thing, of course, would be about the voice, because again, when we get nervous, sometimes the voice can kind of get pulled to the back of the throat and it gets croaky and it gets raspy. So we want to get the voice forward and open. And a really nice way to do this is just to do some gentle humming in your speaking range. So, The most important thing with this is you want to feel the vibrations around your mouth and maybe a bit into your nose. You don't want it in your throat or in your feeling it back here. So if you're going, you can hear the constriction in my voice. You want it forward. So it should feel nice and open and free. So you can do a few rounds of that. And then just to kind of expand the range a little bit more, so we get out of that speaking range, you can, on an NG, and keeping the tongue relaxed and forward, just go as low and as high as you can. A little trick here, because I see this a lot with clients that I work with, try not to move your body or your head to access the pitch. So what I see often is people go, they'll like literally like get out of their seat. So try and stay still, allow the sound to go up, but you stay still, and you're just focusing on creating that sound and that sound going forward, even though the pitch is moving up and down. So finally, is practicing some deep belly breath. So we talked about that in stage 1, but this is more to calm the nervous system. So you can put your hands on your belly, soften the shoulders, and allow the belly to expand as you breathe in. And if you can, breathe in and out through the nostrils, and do this for a sort of 5 to 10 rounds. This deep belly breathing is so useful and powerful for calming our system. But we have to practice it, because for most of us, we're used to taking very shallow breaths, and the breath never really fills up that sort of belly area. So we want to practice this, because ultimately, which we'll get to in the next section, when we're actually speaking, we want to be speaking from this kind of belly breathing, not this high chest, shallow breath, which is when people start to run out of breath when they're speaking, because they can't actually power the voice from there. So this is really important. But as I say, if it's not something you're used to, you do need to practice it, because it's not going to be something the night before you're going to just pick up and be able to run with if you've never done it before. So just to reiterate on this section, so it's really releasing the muscles, getting some softness in the body through the arms, the hands, the shoulders, the neck, through the articulators, the tongue, and also warming up the voice, some gentle humming, some movement through the range, so from low to high on that, and then practicing those deep belly breaths, 5 to 10 rounds, really to kind of anchor you into that present moment and to calm the nervous system. And you could do all of that in no more than, you could do all of that in 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Now, finally, in the moment, get on stage, or I say stage metaphorically or literally, so I'll just use the word because it's easier. You get on stage and then the nerves start to take over. Now, I had this the other week when I did my first concert in London. I was playing the piano for the first time. I'm a singer primarily, and I decided to play the piano. And of course, the nerves took over because it's not something I'm used to doing in public. And my foot would not stop shaking. I literally could not stop my foot from shaking. And fortunately, it didn't really affect my hands. So I was able to continue playing the piano, but my foot shook. So I had to try and actually, in the moment, calm myself down. So I'm going to share this as a real life example because I use this stuff all the time myself, because I'm always putting myself out there in these crazy ways. So the first thing is to try and soften the body as much as possible, remembering that when we get anxious, the muscles tend to tense, whether that's in the throat, the shoulders, the arms, the hands. Now, what we tend to do, and I've been guilty of this too, is we normally have something we hold on to in a presentation. So let's say you've got a mouse and you're doing a PowerPoint presentation, and we'll kind of grip our hand around the mouse. Or maybe we've got a microphone like I would, and we grip our hand around the microphone. Or maybe we're holding onto a pen or a pencil and we grip. So when we grip, we're obviously tensing our hand, but we're also tensing through the arm and then into the shoulders. So if we can bring some awareness and soften, doesn't mean you can't hold a pen or a mouse or a microphone, but just soften into it. Just really helps to kind of release some of that tension and that constriction. Now, in the moment, it may just be bringing awareness. It may just be you saying to yourself, soften my hands. In my case, soften my foot, allow my foot, because my foot was just tense and it would not stop shaking. So when I brought some awareness to softening my foot, I was able to have then a little bit more control over it because I was worried about it falling off the pedal. So it's really, really beneficial to soften into the body. Coming back to the breath, breathe from the belly as much as you can. It's going to help to anchor the voice. It's going to help to power the voice. It's going to help to calm you. Again, you do have to practice. It's not something you can just decide to do the night before, because you're going to then be thinking about too many things. So it's something that if you do a lot of presentations or meetings or speaking engagements, you want to start to actually build this into a daily practice. And even if it's something you do at night, you start to train yourself to breathe more fully and more deeply. You will notice it will make a big difference in the moment. So when you then are anxious, like I was at the piano, I can just bring more awareness to that deeper belly breathing. But if you're speaking, it's also really important for powering the voice. And finally, and definitely not least, take the focus off yourself. Because the reason we get so nervous is because we're over-analyzing, over-criticizing, overthinking about everything. What will people think of me? I look stupid. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have moved that way. I shouldn't have looked that way. Take the attention off yourself and make it about the audience, the people in your meeting, the people in your presentation, because you're there to share something and to serve them. So make it about them, because it is about them ultimately. And then when you take the spotlight off yourself and shine it out to your audience, it actually does calm us down. Because truthfully, most people want you to do well. They're coming to see you, or in my case, coming to a concert because they actually like my music. in your case, they're in a presentation because they actually want to hear what you've got to say. So most people are there and they want you to do well, and they want to actually enjoy the experience. They want to learn from you. They want to come away feeling that was a valuable experience. So that is my biggest tip, actually. I've left it till the end, but really take the focus off yourself and make it about what you can give and how you can serve the people that you're talking to, whether that's online or in person. So I hope that's helped. I will link below some of the videos because I've done videos on a lot of these topics. So the breathing, the articulation warm-ups, the vocal warm-ups, all of those types of things. So I will link the videos below, and then you can go to those specific videos if you need help with those things. But if you like this video, please do comment, like, subscribe. Please also ask me any questions below. And this is, as I say, a topic that I feel very passionately about, because as a singer, it's something that I've had to learn to work with, because you can't be a singer and be crippled by stage fright. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.